welcome guys to the first or the rehash of the Digital Artcast. My name's Gordon Neill, and I'm joined by Colin Searle across in Canada. Say hi, Colin.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey. For those of you who don't know what this is the digital podcast that myself and Colin have put together to basically help probably guys like myself and Colin who are just starting in the digital industry of either concept art, visual effects, animation, anything that's kind of related to illustration or drawing or painting. Throughout the next couple of weeks, or next couple of months even, we'll try and keep this on a steady flow. Hopefully every, 1 to 2 weeks we'll try and get an episode out, and we'll talk about different things relating to, like I said, VFX, illustration and concept art. You can probably find this hopefully on iTunes and SoundCloud, and we're obviously going to try and publish it through YouTube. Any of the links or any of the information you need we'll probably post in the show notes, which will be down below in the description. Yeah, my name's Gordon. I'm Gordon Neill, and I'm based in Scotland, the UK, over here in Great Britain, and for the majority of my life I have, probably like most of you, played video games, watched TV and film, and when I was just around the age of 23, 24, I got into collecting art books. A lot of you guys know when you buy some limited edition video games, they started publishing stuff like art books that came as part of the pre-production stuff. And obviously I watched a lot of the behind the scenes DVDs of how they built the games, and that sparked my interest in art. One of the first ones I watched actually was the Gears of War, the original Gears of War. It was the Road to E3. It was a kind of mini documentary. It followed Cliffy B, a couple of the guys at was it Epic Games? Yeah, they worked at the time.
Yeah, Epic Games.
And they basically published out with the first Gears of War. It was a small DVD and an art book, and that kind of sparked my interest basically on.
Oh wow, I don't think I've ever actually seen that. That was definitely a while ago.
Yeah, that was, oh god, that's gone back again 5 or 6 years, maybe even more. I can never remember when first Gears came out, but
I think if it was the first Gears, that'd be around 2006. So like, yeah, a while ago.
So a while ago. So yeah, got my interest in that. And I'd always used Photoshop as a means of doing fan art or just straight up albums or single covers for some of my friends' bands at the time. And I was working a job at the time where I really wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I worked for the British Railway, and I decided to leave. I think I just turned 25, and the plan was to go back to school of some sort. I wasn't sure where, and study art, just kind of traditional art at the time. So I applied for a local college. I got in a kind of foundation program, and then 5 years have flown by. It's kind of went as a blur. I've took the longest route possible. It was mostly because when I applied for art, I didn't really have a killer portfolio, and I also didn't have a lot of experience, obviously, drawing traditional art. So a lot of the stuff I was talking to them about, especially even just 5 years ago, because concept art, I think, is a thing that's sprung out of nowhere. It's a job that's been created.
Yeah, it's I think it's sort of the job that was created like solely through necessity.
Yep, basically, because obviously a lot of the guys that we admire, even one of the guys, Feng Zhong, who does the FCD podcast, he spoke about how it used to be a thing where people in the industry, if they had so many programmers in the team, the guys would just walk about and say, "Oh, you're one of the programmers that can draw. Oh, cool. You can do all the artwork for the game.
You have this one extra skill. How about you do all the art for this entire game?"
Yeah. So that was a scary process. But so yeah, that's kind of where it came from. Because they didn't have concept artists back then. It was just mostly one or two general artists that made the entire theme. But now you have teams of like 16 guys working on one game. Obviously, it produced a lot of concept, vehicle design, props, characters, all that kind of stuff. So that was my introduction to the industry. Went through 1 year in a foundation course. Then I bumped up to another course which was just above that, and then I finished that, and I done 2 years in what they call a diploma. So it's kind of like half a degree in graphic design, because I kind of had a shit myself moment where I finished my NC and I was like, oh no, I'm never going to get a job in concept because it's so difficult. So I kind of pussied out and went for the graphic design course, thinking that would solidify myself in a career. And then towards that, when I was about to finish that, I kind of felt that I was betraying myself because when I left my job, a well-paid job at the time, I wanted to pursue this dream, and I thought, I'm not going to give up on it. So just towards the end of that course, I applied for a course, or a couple of courses actually, in Scotland that done 3D animation. Because I've been told, obviously, getting in the games industry, 3D is very handy to have. It's a very
Oh yeah, yeah. If it's not your main skill, it's something you're gonna want in at least your back pocket.
yeah, definitely. So I managed to get into a university local to me, which was the University of West of Scotland, and they do a 4-year degree, honours degree in I think it's a Bachelor of Science in 3D animation. So I've currently just finished my second year, and I'm now going into my third year, which will obviously be my third year, and then I'll finish that and do my fourth year, which will be my honours, and then that'll be me. So by the time I'm qualified, I'll be 30. I'll just be coming up to be 32, and then where did I leave? When I was just about mid 25. So yeah, I'll probably be in the education system close to 7 years before I finish. So I've took the longest route possible.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm happy in what I'm doing, and I'm finding it's great because I'm getting to meet new people and network with people, and
Yeah, exactly.
so especially my Facebook used to be a lot of guys I knew just in high school, but now I've got guys who are professional artists for things like Magic and Lucasfilm and DreamWorks, and
Yeah.
I've got a guy in my friends list from 343 Industries who do Halo. So yeah, and of course yourself, and many other artists that I've met along the way. So I'm just thinking back the way, but how did I actually get you on my friends list, Colin? Was it through Artcore by chance?
You know what? I think, yeah, it was, yeah, I think it was Artcore.
Yeah,
It must have been.
I'm just even thinking back to when I added you, and I'm trying to think how did I originally add you. It would have been because obviously, and try to say this without the badness, because you weren't in the industry at the time, because you were just studying,
Yeah.
and people I usually did add were people who were industry professionals. So I'm just trying to think, but you're right. It probably was Artcore, I think actually. In fact, you know what it was? I know exactly what it was. You posted you posted a picture. It was a painting you done, and it's like a small market leading up to a castle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, right. That was during my internship last summer.
Yeah, yeah, and so the first initial black and white version was the one I saw, which I commented on because Mario, he actually commented on it as well, and then I commented on it, and then I saw the follow up, which was the full paint color, and then again I was blown away with your work, so I think I added you through that. So yeah,
Yeah, that must have been what it was.
yep. So there you go. So that's my story so far. Work wise. I've worked a lot of kind of Joe jobs throughout my term, and I'm currently taking some commissions, some freelance stuff, but not a ton. Not as much as I want, basically. So the goal between now and the end of summer is to get pretty much 100% with Maya, or enough that I'm going to be able to keep working competently through it, and obviously get my painting and drawing skills up along the way as well, which obviously Colin's going to help me with. Thank God.
Woo!
Yay! I need all the help I can get. But yeah, that's pretty much me. And I think again it's good with this podcast because it gives two kind of sides of the coin. I'll just be qualifying, but Colin has just qualified. Woohoo! Congratulations.
Yay! I'm not a failure.
Colin finished with very high honours on his degree, so he's done very well, and he is now currently employed at an animation studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well done to Colin. So, take us back, 4 years, Colin, and or even before that. You can maybe even just have a line up to how you kind of started applying to university or how you done it at high school. What was your main influence? So just
Definitely.
how did Colin get to where Colin is now?
Yeah. So, holy crap! How did I start? All right. I guess my journey into the art world begins right at the end of high school. I'd always been the type who I drew a lot, but overall all of high school, I think if I was to put it into terms of like a single sketchbook, I probably filled about the equivalent of a single sketchbook throughout all 4 years of high school. So,
Wow.
some drawing, but not a heck of a lot, to be completely honest. And it was only towards the end when I realized that, you know what? I think I actually might want to, do art, because I was doing more and more and more of it.
Yep.
And I was applying to all these academic programs in university, like U of T and which is University of Toronto, in Waterloo, and just like 5 or 6 and like a huge range of programs, because I was pretty interested in academics and stuff, like political science and whatnot.
Yep.
But I was just like, I don't actually know if I would survive in an academic program. Not because I couldn't do it, but I'd just be so friggin' bored. Like,
Yeah.
especially becoming more interested in drawing and painting and whatnot. Back then, all traditional. Like I didn't actually touch digital art until probably around the end of first year, which is 2 years after that. So
Right.
at the end of high school, I sort of took a chance. Kept all my university applications out, but I also applied to Sheridan Animation, for which you have to put together a pretty comprehensive portfolio, and it's really, really specific. So I just sort of went into it guns blazing, did my portfolio, thought it was really good, went and got it reviewed by some people. I knew a couple of other people who were trying to get in, so we all sort of grouped together and tried to do that. Ended up not getting in the first time and not doing particularly well in terms of marks, because they actually mark it out of 4. But it was weird because I was talking to some other people, and they were like, you know what, yeah, like this portfolio did sort of have a chance to at least get you close. But I think it was like a 1.6 or 7 out of 4. Not that that matters now, because 5, 6 years, or actually no, 5 years later, 5 years later, like, it really doesn't matter. But I sort of realized then that, like, oh god, I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I basically took the next year. I went into I got into to like a sort of a prep program in Sheridan called Art Fundamentals, which is usually where people go if they either failed the portfolio application for animation, illustration, or for like photography or whatever, for those kinds of things. Actually, I think photography and film had like a separate media prep course at Sheridan. But anyway, got into Art Fundamentals, realized that wasn't really the thing for me either. So I pretty much dropped out after about a semester. So and I was just like, yeah, you know what, whatever. But I found another group of people who were really, really gung ho and hardcore about getting into either animation or illustration, and we also found ourselves sort of a mentor who'd been through illustration. I think he was also in animation, but he may have switched. I don't know. But out of that group of, I think, 20 something of us, I think about 10 to 12 of us got in. So pretty decent. So the second time around, reapplied. I did an animation portfolio and an illustration portfolio. In fact, both me and a friend of mine named Julius did that. We both got into both programs, which was like, holy shit. Yeah. So we were just like, okay, you know what? You go for one, I'll go for the other. And then at the end, we'll be like, okay, which one was better? So he went into illustration, I went to animation, and that was pretty much the beginning for me. Like up until that point, I've been drawing a little bit, but I didn't really know how to study or if I was studying the right stuff. Like perspective, anatomy, form, all that stuff. But so I got into first year and was surrounded by tons and tons of really, really talented people. I think about 150 were in my year.
Wow.
And people who had been like doing art for the past like 10 years, people who had massive followings on social media already, and I was just like, holy shit, this is insane. What have I got myself into? And my confidence took a real hit that first year. But basically what I did is, instead of freaking out, and I mean, like, well, of course I freaked out. I sort of met, I guess, anxiety for the first time.
Yeah.
But basically what I did was just put my head down and just get right into it. I was doing like 3 hours of life drawing a day almost all week, commuting from one city to another to get back and forth to Sheridan. And I was just basically throwing myself right into it. And I was actually starting to do pretty decent. Like, it was becoming clear that I actually had a chance. Like, I was producing work that even back then I was just like, okay, you know what, like, this isn't terrible.
Yeah.
But throughout all 4 years of Sheridan, I think every year I definitely did more work than the year previously.
Right.
To like an exponential degree. Like, first year, I did a lot. Second year, things ramped up. Third year, things got really crazy because we had that was our group film year. So we all got into groups of I think 10 or 12. It was all properly organized and created short animated films with all the people in the group. And then fourth year was our solo animated film year. So basically taking everything we knew from the years prior and basically soloing. I think we had to do 60 seconds. That was all we could show during Industry Day. But some people went insane and did 4 minutes. My film was 3 minutes and 40 seconds, I think, with credits.
Yeah.
And but I think during my 4 years of animation, when I really got serious was probably the summer after second year when I was just like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna sit down, get involved with all the like the groups on Facebook, Level Up, Artcore, and I really just started to hammer home, like I really got to start studying this stuff. I taught myself, not how to paint well, but at least I was getting, I actually had painting skills at the end of that summer as opposed to none, and practicing drawing and all that stuff, and it was a really crazy summer. But after that point, I was just like, okay, you know what? I think I might actually be able to, make a career out of this. It wasn't just being in school like blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I actually had more plans than just get through school and then do something afterwards.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just wrap this little part up by saying after I think it was second semester, fourth year, which is what I just finished. In fact, my convocation was last week, and I think we officially finished about 6 weeks ago.
Right.
But I was already freelancing in second semester, and sort of like building up contacts in the industry. And I actually met the guy who owns the animation studio that I work at now. I met him before I graduated as well, and he actually just offered me a job after I showed him most of my film. I think it was about 90% of it that was finished.
Yeah.
And so he just offered me a job the next day, and I was just like, oh shit.
I can still mind that. I can remember you actually contacted me on Facebook and saying I think I've actually just scored a job by showing somebody my animation. So I was like, holy shit. Yeah. So
yeah, I was just like, what the fuck. And then let me see. I actually wanted to wait until Industry Day. Industry Day at Sheridan is sort of like all the, or sort of not all the, but a lot of industry professionals and companies sort of show up, and everyone shows their films, and it's a super huge deal, and a lot of people get jobs out of it. And I wanted to wait for that until after, when I sort of had all my ducks in a row and all my offers ready, that I could make the decision to to go somewhere. But in the end, I actually did end up going to Elliot because his offer was fantastic. It was definitely it's out of my comfort zone for in a lot of ways, but like it just seemed like a really good idea. A lot of stuff to learn, a lot of people to meet, and I was just like, you know what, let's just go for it. And and here I am a month in, and I'm friggin' loving it.
So this week, a year in review.
Year,
oh god,
that's a long week.
Yeah. So this week, what have I been doing? I've been doing some tutorials in 3D Motive. I started a basic Maya block out of a dungeon, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Can you remember yourself, Colin? The guy was.
Yeah. We got his name yesterday, and I forgot again.
Oh god, oh man. Yeah. Basically, been doing that on 3D Motive to try and brush up my Maya skills. Because, like I said, they've just not been as high as I've been wanting them to be. I've not. There's been times when I've been also looking at Maya thinking I need to get better at this. So I've been trying to push myself to try and do a couple of tutorials online. Tobias Coep was his name.
There you go.
Tobias Coep, yes. He does a stylized dungeon in Maya tutorial. I think it's like 6.5 hours long, but the end result was actually quite impressive. So yeah, he's had that up. I've been doing that this week. What else? Sketching. Although it's been pretty amazing weather the last week, so I've been out now and again trying to catch some rays. So yeah, sketchbook work, 3D. And I think that's mostly it for now anyway. I know I've got the last Comic Con I'm doing this year is coming up in July, so I've been prepping some commissions for that and some prints I'm going to be probably selling. So Yeah, busy just sitting doing some digital art, and chatting to you. So that's pretty much been my week in review. Nothing too exciting. I have played Doom, yeah. So that's one to add on. Yeah, you can't get away that all us artists are also fans of the industry. That's probably why we get it. So,
Yeah.
movies and games are something obviously that still exist in our time. So, but yeah, Doom. I think I've played that mostly. If it's not that, I'm usually always playing Dota. Do you know about Dota, Colin, Defender of the Ancient?
Um, yeah, yeah. I'm actually not a huge MOBA guy, but I got into League of Legends a while ago. Liked it. Also Heroes of the Storm, but I've never actually played Dota.
Yeah, oh, it's well, I mean, it's the one that started it all. Really,
Hmm.
the granddaddy of them all. So, but yeah, it's
It was the mod, and then Blizzard's like, oh shit, we should make an actual game based on this game that was based on one of our mods, and
yeah,
like, wow.
I know, because obviously Valve now own Dota, but then Blizzard have now made Heroes of the Storm, which is their is it MOBA, and I actually have played both and still prefer Dota, purely because with Dota everything is technically free. Like the base game and the 100 odd characters are all accessible from the go. The only thing that you have to pay money for is the cosmetic stuff, so like skins,
I
weapons, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Which
Um,
kind of makes sense.
yeah, because obviously with the way Heroes is structured, you pay for individual heroes, or you can buy them in bulk, like in packs, which I think is difficult because MOBAs are purely existent on their heroes, um, and I know they do a rotation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do a rotation. I think every week they change who you can play for free, but I think the thing that drew me to Dota was the fact that all the heroes are free from the get go, so you can try as many as you want, and if you want to make them look prettier, then that's the only thing you really pay for. So,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely. So that's been my week in review. And calling yourself, what have you been up to?
This week is my fourth week at Elliott. So this Friday was a month, and man, like it's been fantastic. I'm still sort of trying to get my feet under me, meet new people. Uh, Actually, over the past 4 weeks, really, I've been doing a little bit of development work for George Eliot himself, based on some sort of ideas of his and IPs that I actually can't talk about. But so I've sort of been lone wolfing it in the studio while everyone else is working on the current productions. But I just did a storyboard test for their last show,
Hmm.
and based on that, they were like, okay, you know what? Let's just throw this guy into some storyboard provisions on our new show. So I'm expecting that to probably come up sometime this week, which is pretty cool because I'm really sort of itching to get into it.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, on the side, I've pretty much just been trying to survive after work because I'm not used to pulling 8 hour days, and I also have to
Yeah,
commute from Mississauga, which is a suburb, into Toronto, which is obviously a city.
yeah.
It's a pretty long way, like about an hour and a half to 2 hours one way. So it's a
Wow.
pretty long commute, which was making me think, like people do this for 20 years straight, but I
Yeah,
kind of don't want to kill myself.
yeah.
So I made plans to move into the city probably about 2 months, 6 weeks from now, depending on when the place becomes free.
Mm.
And yeah, I've also been continuing to take life drawing classes, going to costume life drawing sessions. I did I think 2 this week, and it was cool because a lot of the Sheridan alumni people that I graduated with also go to these things. So it's a good way to keep in contact, good way to keep hanging out with people that I actually know.
Mm.
It was also cool because at Elliott there's at least two other people that I know of that are also from Sheridan, so it's also good to sort of be working with people that I at least know decently well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm about halfway through the period, which I think they say it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to become sort of fully not fully integrated, but comfortable with the job. So 4 weeks is about halfway through that, and I'm feeling about 50% comfortable, and yeah, but the work is really fantastic. I'm really happy there. Everyone's really chill. Also, really just like crazy amounts of talent in that studio. Holy crap! And George Eliot himself, he's actually probably one of the best artists that I know personally. Like actually know, not just on the internet, but
Yeah.
man, that guy can draw. Holy shit!
Nice.
I can't talk about what he's drawing, but I can tell you that I got a lot to learn from him and everyone else there, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, you were talking about the life drawing costume stuff. I wish we had more of that across here because our life drawing is very basic. I say basic. It's just normal naked form life drawing.
Hmm.
But I know a guy from Glasgow who I think is across in the States now in New York hosts a life drawing thing called Dare to Draw. You ever heard of that?
Dare to Draw. Is that kind of like Tunes on Tap?
I'm not sure what it is actually, but it's kind of similar vein where people would dress up for life drawing and use props like spears and swords, and then they would pose together like a battle scene, and then the guys obviously would draw the guys posing, but in these costumes and props, and they have a competition like some of the best guys who that have the best sketches at the end of the day, they get prizes, and then they get featured on the website. But I think it only runs out of the city where he's currently in. I think it is New York, but
Yeah.
I just wish there was something like this across here because it probably would make the. I'm trying to think because obviously that stuff is more dynamically aimed at animation games and film, whereas normal life drawing
Yeah.
for normal artists would go towards just portraiture and painting. But yeah, just again, I think it would be something to have across here would be great because obviously I think life drawing in its sense, when you're, the drawing's great, but I think with the action poses it would add that something extra that probably you don't get with normal life drawing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and is that something that's hosted regularly where you stay?
Yeah, Tunes on Tap and the other course I'm taking with are actually both in Toronto. And there's a third one I know of called Doctor Sketchies, which is it's basically the same thing as Tunes on Tap. And what that is it's actually hosted in an upstairs bar. So
Oh,
like right behind us is this bar. You can order a beer or several, and just get down to drawing. I think the model we had this week was can't remember his name, but he was posing first as Rambo and then as Rocky. So I was just like, oh man, it's a Stallone double feature. Holy crap! But
nice.
I got some really good drawings out of that, and so did a lot of my friends. Like, and it was a really really awesome high energy thing. Like they had all the right music, and like the soundtracks from the movies, like just blasting through the speakers,
Oh,
and
great.
and actually that was I think Wednesday, and then contrasted to that on Thursday night was as you say more of a traditional life drawing class with an old professor of mine named Brian who I had in second year,
Cool.
and he runs his life drawing classes directly out of his apartment, which is big enough obviously to have a class of like 15, 20 people in there
Wow.
doing life drawing, and it's sort of like semi instructed. Basically the model comes in, and each week we focus on a sort of different aspects. I
Yep.
can't remember what this week was. I think it was this week was definitely more geared towards shorter poses, gesture, that kind of thing.
Right.
But Brian usually gives us specific things to work on during each sort of like session, and it's really really good practice. In
Wow.
fact, I think I'd go so far as saying like even though in fourth year I wasn't able to do a heck of a lot of life drawing, I'm getting back into it now because I can owe 70 to 80% of my drawing skill at least to all the life drawing that I've done for the past basically since first year, so
Wow.
4 years ago.
Wow.
But like it really is that important, I would say.
Yeah, and I think especially you were talking about Axis animation, and they were saying that a lot of the guys who come in for character-based jobs, they obviously look at your portfolio as standard, but I think they also look for a life drawn sketchbook, just to obviously pick up on like how your traditional skills apply over to your 3D stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, if you're going in for a job interview with a studio like that, I wouldn't recommend putting life drawing stuff in your portfolio itself. But if you come in with a sketchbook full of like just studies from life,
yeah,
like life drawing, that sort of stuff, then they'll be like, oh shit, whoa, this guy's like, this guy obviously knows how to study.
yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely. I think because obviously they were saying, a lot of guys, I think, especially younger guys in my class, sometimes think that with the character based stuff, if you know the 3D stuff enough, you can then just kind of, put the 2D stuff to the back. But I think obviously, the lecturers still try to push that the 2D traditional stuff is still very important in what you're doing, especially for characters, because anatomy, again, is one of these things you could learn all your life and you would never learn it all. I mean, because there's so much to
Exactly.
the human.
There's so much to take in, and it takes so long to learn any one thing.
Yeah, even just, I mean, like stuff like you say, you can just break down hands and then fingers, and then you've got bones and muscles below those tendons. I mean, it's a medical thing in itself that some doctors study for years, and again, never really comprehend.
Hmm.
But yeah, the anatomy stuff is huge. In fact, I think I would say even no matter what you do in this kind of side of the industry, I think anatomy is a huge thing, regardless. Even if you're doing
Oh yeah,
even if you're
yeah.
doing environments, I think you should study anatomy at one point. So yeah, well, you've been busier than me, Colin. I can say that much.
Yeah.
which is what I need to change. Obviously, I think it's difficult as well. I think because across here there's not as many life drawing opportunities, but I think if I look hard enough, I might start finding some. So I'll keep you up to date on what's happening with that.
Mm. You know what? You know what? In terms of life drawing, I actually find that sometimes doing digital life drawing is actually a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't done it in a while, but this summer I'm actually going to do exactly what you're doing, which is exactly what I did back in the summer after second year, and just like instead of trying to focus on fan art, you know, like sort of padding my portfolio out or replacing it,
Yeah.
I'm just going to get back into study. It's like really, this is the perfect time to do it. I'm coming right out of school, and you know, like life drawing, painting studies, anatomy studies, perspective, all that. Not so much focusing on actually trying to get a finished piece out of any of it, but
Yeah.
you know, just getting back into study mode. Like I can't remember in Dragon Ball Z, what's it called when you go into like super shit. I can't remember the name for it, but it's like super hyper ball something mode.
The Kaioken.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're basically able to train when time is moving really really slow. But that's kind of that's
Oh,
that's kinda
the hyperbolic time chamber.
There you go, hyperbolic time chamber. God, I had like half of it.
Yeah, because I think they spend an hour in, but it's like a year's worth of training or something like that.
Exactly. And even though you can't actually do that in the real world, that's how I kind of like to think of it. Because like, yeah, it's so cool. I'm gonna study some shit. Because studying is really really boring. So you gotta make it fun somehow.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously you've got to try and vary it as well, because if you study hands for about a week or two straight, then you're obviously just gonna go crazy. So
You're gonna die.
yeah, pretty much. So okay,
but that's
cool.
good because like cycling through a whole bunch of subjects when you're studying is probably the best way to go about it anyway. Because as soon as you get bored of something, there's like a million other things you could be doing.
Because I think some of the fundamentals people talk about is like architecture, anatomy, animals to a basic degree, and then like you obviously got your color theory, composition, lighting, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can jump from one to the other, and even materials. You know, there's a whole gambit of stuff, and then obviously traditional versus digital as well. So
Yeah.
a lot. There's a lot. Oh god, just give up now. Hey.
And one thing I've noticed when studying in the short amount of time that I've been doing this, when you're doing one thing, it will definitely retroactively affect all the other things. Like you focus on perspective, it'll help you draw figures, or it'll help you draw animals, or like it'll obviously help you draw things like vehicles and environments and stuff. But yeah,
definitely.
everything affects everything.
Yeah, thank God for that. At least I have to spend twice the amount of time trying to study it. So yeah, we're going to move on now to our main subject for this week. What we'll probably try and do for the guys who are listening is we're going to try and pick a subject every week. Me and Colin are going to try and discuss in depth, and then we'll vary it up from podcast to podcast. We'll try and maybe get some guests on. I know there's a couple of guys I know industry-wise that will want to come on, and Colin obviously has a backlog of a couple of guys who either want to come on as guests or maybe join the podcast full time. So, but
Yeah.
that's still in the works, so we're going to work on that. But this week, we're going to talk about, we've got down the show notes as art block, motivation versus discipline. But I think just a general discussion, which could really last hours, but it is focusing on motivation for just to keep going, I think is the main kind of body of the talk. Because obviously I think the drive to keep doing things is something that everybody struggles with, not just artists. But I think obviously
everybody in the world, but artists specifically, because basically what we do, all of our marketable skills are based on what you can actually do with your hands, and so if that's it, you pretty much got to keep going no matter what, even if you don't necessarily want to or you don't feel like it, or like you said, you're struggling with anxiety. All those things are problems, but eventually you've got to find a way to get past that.
Yeah. I mean, and definitely. I think I was talking the other night about how. I have a collection of art books at the back of me where I just, if I'm feeling even a bit down, or I feel like, what do I draw? I just open the pages of my books and try to think, how did these guys accomplish this? What, how can I replicate that painting? Or look, those guys have drawn, like a minotaur or something. That'd be quite cool to study some Greek mythology creatures. So I think it's trying to keep fresh in your head the ideas of studying, like you were saying, trying to vary it so that it doesn't become stagnated or boring. And is there specific things that you would do, Colin, that keep you wanting to draw or keep you just focused on studying?
Actually, how I try to think of it is, I basically imagine, okay, What's my stuff going to look like in 5 years if like I really get down to this and really start studying and then do it consistently? And that sort of gets me excited because like over my past 4 years at Sheridan, I've improved really quickly, but not passively. Obviously, I've done it with like a ton of work.
Yep.
And I obviously still have a long way to go, but the long way to go, for some reason, it actually kind of excites me, and it's almost something you can take comfort in because it is a really long journey, and like it's not going to happen immediately. It's not so much a sprint as it is a marathon. As cliche as that is, it's true.
Yeah. And I definitely think, obviously, there's so many people I've met in the art world where that is the case because, within 2 weeks, if they're not, Jim Lee, they're basically
Yeah.
they're basically giving up on life, and I think
Like I don't think that's actually necessarily a bad thing because that's it's almost like a stage that you kind of have to go through as an artist.
yep, definitely, and I think you have to recognize, that you will be bad for a while, but
And by a while, that means years.
yeah, oh, definitely,
Not
and
just monster weeks. That is literally years.
yeah, I mean, like even some of the greatest guys who in the industry have always said that no matter how good you get, there is always, because the world's a big place, there's always going to be somebody better than you, no matter how hard you study. I mean, you talk even guys like Craig Mullins were saying the other night. Craig probably looks at guys he thinks are better than him. I don't know who he's
Even though
looking
they're
at.
not.
Yeah, I don't know who he's looking at, but no, I mean he even says himself. He sees some artists coming up, younger guys who he sees that are doing things better than he. Even if it's maybe something simple like their environmental lighting is maybe a bit better than his, or some of their composition studies, but. Yeah, I think even at the top, you still have to recognise that there is going to be somebody bigger and better. It's like they said in episode
Yeah.
one. There's always going to be a bigger fish. There's always going to be somebody out there wanting more than you, and I think that also is just why you've got to be motivated. Because I think if you're not motivated enough, people will just keep surpassing you, and that's when it comes to obviously applying for stuff like jobs, especially in this industry. It's survival of the fittest. There's only so many jobs, and there's thousands of graduates every year, and that's
The industry is becoming really saturated with graduates because like my school alone is putting out 200-300 people who are geared towards going into animation or illustration.
Yep.
Multiply that by the 30 or 40 major art schools that are sort of scattered around North America, Europe,
Yep.
whatever. That's a ton of people going into an industry or collection of industries that's pretty small.
Yeah, oh definitely. I mean, even when we finished our 2-year diploma we done in graphic design, one of our lecturers said to us that I think on average there was something like 60,000 graduates a year.
Yeah.
For graphic design.
I definitely don't think that.
Yeah, that's just for graphic design as well. So I mean, if you're one of the guys, there's still 59,999 people that are all battering for a job, the same as you. So.
That's not even counting the people who are outside art school who either can't afford it or just don't really have an interest, and they've either dropped out or they're teaching themselves, and like that's a whole other group of people that you have to compete with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all know some of the stories of some of the guys. Mark Burnett's one of them who traditionally didn't go to school. He just studied his ass off and drew and painted and got himself a job in Blizzard. So I mean, yeah, mark that against a guy who's just come out of a 4-year graduate degree, and is looking fresh faced and still wanting a job. Where Mark's done it off his own back. So it's that's the thing you're competing with. I mean, and especially with freelance, more and more people are just doing it off their own back. I mean, I know I remember reading about a guy in Poland who quit his job as a bank manager, motivated himself enough to draw nearly 16 hours a day.
Wait, who was that? Was that Mark Ocon or somebody else?
I can't remember his name. I could.
This sounds very familiar.
Yeah, but he left his job, painted for like 16 hours a day, and I think within a year, I think he got a job doing illustration freelance for, I think it was publishing in magazines and books, and then I think he crossed over to games at one point. But he just left his job like me, and wanted to do it, and then but that's another level of dedication and motivation beyond even me. Like I think he was at that point where if he didn't get a job after he left his other job, he was going to be like either flat broke or
Yeah.
getting kicked out of his house, or his mortgage would be getting null and void. But yeah, so the motivation I think is, I think you need to have a tremendous amount of motivation in this industry, especially because unlike most Joe jobs like McDonald's or something like that, where they're hiring every second day, and they take anybody sometimes because they're just needing bodies.
Hmm.
It's a professional industry. You need to be a professional, and you need to keep that level. I think through your entire life, pretty much as an artist. I mean, I don't think you've just graduated, you've started a job, a paid job, and you're still learning, you're still wanting to learn, and I think that's
Hmm.
admirable because a lot of people even get out of their graduate degree and think this is it, I don't have to study anymore, no more late night sessions, but
Yeah.
it's just the
And
beginning, I think.
I think in terms of some jobs or some disciplines and industries, that might actually be okay.
Yep.
To not make any more sort of giant leaps in in skill or knowledge acquired or intelligence because they might not need to. But
Yep.
I think that group is pretty small. I think most jobs, most people who work, which is basically everybody, most industries, I think you pretty much always have to be learning. So it's not just
Yeah.
art, but I think it's definitely really, really important for something like art.
Yeah.
Maybe more important than most.
Yeah, it's more like general life advice, I think, than actually specific to art. But yeah, you're right. I think even when we worked on the railway years ago, a lot of the graduates that came out from engineering degrees still had to learn, a lot of stuff to do with the specific industry they went into,
Yeah.
to try and make their job more applicable. But yeah, it's definitely. I think being academic is the thing that separates you from everybody else, especially when you go to work. Because people will see, I think, the dedication in your eyes, the fire in your eyes when you enter the industry, and I think, you know. People have always said a thing that kind of inspires me sometimes is that you know I might not have the talent just now, but people keep saying things like I have the right attitude. So if I do
It's
have
not
people,
necessarily talent. I think I actually don't really believe in sort of talent as a concept specifically. I
yeah,
think it's more just like I think it's more basically, time on task
yeah,
and you just don't have that crazy amount of time on task yet. You definitely have some
yeah,
and it's actually pretty easy to get more. You just sit down and you do it.
yeah.
But obviously sitting down and doing it is where it gets kind of hard.
It's the
And
hard bit, yeah,
that brings me to another point. In terms of motivation specifically, I'm sort of picking it apart now, but
yeah,
motivation is great, and I've definitely experienced it before. I'm actually not experiencing it sort of right now, at this very second,
yeah,
mostly because I'm going through like a big period of transition. Lots of unfamiliar things. It's a little uncomfortable,
yeah,
especially starting a new job, meeting lots of people. Basically just shifting the direction of my life away from school and into the rest of my career, trying to start really really strong.
yeah,
But I think when you don't have the motivation it's sort of not readily sort of inspiring you, where you can sort of compensate for that is the second part, which is discipline.
yeah,
And basically whenever you're not motivated, if you can immediately call on those habits or basically just discipline that you've sort of built up, that can keep you going until the next time you get motivated or when you get comfortable or when you sort of like I guess you're just feeling better about what you're doing.
yeah. I mean,
And
definitely.
then of course you change it up, you do something new, and you get it and you get uncomfortable again, and that's when discipline kicks back in.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I think people sometimes don't understand that motivation is something that can leave you. It's not like you've got to have it your entire life, 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I mean, there will be points because I mean, life gets in the way. We're all human at the end of the day. So I mean,
Exactly,
there
life
will.
will happen.
Yeah, I mean, if
If
you
you don't
get
think it will, it's gonna happen really friggin' soon, man.
yeah, because you'll just jinx it. I mean, because sickness or family members, falling out with people, all these things that affect the human condition, and
Or
I
even
think
just like a bunch of really really small things. It doesn't have to be big.
yeah, well, definitely. Like you get some, you trip and fall on the way to work, and you're bruised the whole day, or it's stupid stuff like that. Like it can affect you, and I think that's what you said. The discipline part of it, it's thinking right. Okay, cool. I've had a fall, I've had a wee stumble, right? Okay, but yeah, I still need to get back into this way, right? Okay, what was I going to do? Right? Okay, I was going to do this. Let's get on with it. And I think as well, I was talking about that last night as well as kind of planning out your days. You were talking about how when I first saw your schedule for your end of year animation in your fourth year, it was so meticulous on assets and when you needed it to be complete by, and you were ticking and marking off green bits where they were finished.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good thing for motivation as well, isn't it? Is trying to pre-plan what you're going to study.
Yeah. Actually, Uh, the thing about that sort of like graph specifically
Hmm.
was it was actually graph number 4. It took me 3 iterations to finally get that thing, where I needed it to be.
Right.
And that was also because it was a different part of the production than the previous stages that I've been planning, because that was the actual production stage and post production stage of my film. But I needed to also plan out pre-production and like all the concept art, all the storyboards,
Yep.
which is completely different than production or post production. So, but yeah, like if you're trying to plan out your day, you're trying to plan out exactly what you want to study, or plan
Hmm.
out a week. Be like, okay, I want to study like a specific thing on this day or this day or this day.
Yep.
If you're finding that it's kind of hard, that's actually normal, because like that sort of meticulous planning of your day, it's not something that most people are good at right off the bat. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that
just
that's
stick with it. It's I guess it qualifies as a learned skill like anything else.
yeah, definitely. There's guys who teach whole courses and classes on organization skills and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a thing upon itself. Again, like you said, I wouldn't feel too bad if you know you try to plan your day out and then you get past your like, oh, like 9 a.m. I'm going to be at my desk. If you're at your desk at 9:05 a.m., like, don't kill yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's you've got to understand that as long as you've got a rough guide, I think even that's a good start. Like,
Yeah. Exactly.
I got to my desk at 9:20. All right, cool. So that's cool. I'll just study for 20 minutes more, and I'll have to push this a wee bit back, but that's cool. Just go with the flow. Don't, yeah, because you're always going to be your own worst critic when it comes to art and motivation and learning. So I think you have to at some points give yourself a break. Not too much of a break, obviously, that you sit on Facebook for 3 hours, but at the same time,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, if you're 20 minutes late getting into a certain routine, or you're going to start studying after lunch at 12 and it's 12:15, again, roll with the punches.
Hmm.
As long as you're being productive enough throughout the day that you feel you've done something. Or unlike Colin, who goes to play Doom all day and then realizes he hasn't done any work, and he's like, "Oh shit!" So yeah, I better do something. Um,
Whoops.
yeah, we've all
Actually, I
done it.
think I think I'm also on that note. It's also probably a good time to talk about goals and goal setting in relation to what you're talking about specifically.
Yeah.
So like when you start a day, it's actually not that great of an idea to set like crazy like finish an entire 10-hour painting in one day.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's definitely a better idea to set really really manageable goals, almost undershoot what you think you can do. So
Hmm.
then like you finish it, you still got 5 hours left. You'd be like, holy shit, I'm done what I need to do for the day.
Hmm.
Let's do some extra stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
definitely.
you feel really really good at the end, because even though you even though you got sort of what you had planned to do done,
Hmm.
it's the same as what you'd plan to do any other day, but it feels like way the hell more, because you're like, oh cool, I got that done and I can do a whole bunch of extra stuff now.
Yeah, even like there was a talk I think I linked to you about the sketchbook work where one of the girls who linked it, she was saying how like filling sketchbooks especially is good motivation to try and get you inspired for your next project. Where she would sit and say herself, like, okay, the next 3 days or the next week, I'm going to draw 100 heads in my sketchbook, and
Hmm.
she got to 100 after I think only a day or 2 days, because she was so motivated to do it. She was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm just going to draw even more. So I think she ended up drawing 200. But I think it's good to try and, like you said, if you can set your goals lower, then you feel like you've accomplished more. And I think that accomplishment also releases stuff in your brain that would say, all right, great, you've done well, you've accomplished something. And obviously it increases your mood, increases your idea of like, oh, I can do more. Because obviously I think if you
Yeah.
set yourself a goal of like, I don't know, 1,000 heads in 2 days, and you only get you only get like 500 or something, you're like, oh god, I failed. But you know what I mean. So it's, yeah, again, it's the balance, like you said. I think it's trying to weigh your goals as being realistic. I think is the word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Realistic goals are definitely the best way to go. And I mean, that's definitely not to say that challenging yourself isn't a bad thing. Like, sometimes the only way that I can get myself motivated is to is to basically set a goal that's like really really out there.
Yeah.
But like sometimes that's just what you have to do. So challenging yourself is definitely something that shouldn't be ignored, but only when you're really really feeling like you can actually do it. Or even if you don't get to it, you're not going to feel so down on yourself that like, okay, well, that was pointless. But
Yeah. Because obviously with your studying, it's got to be a daily thing. I mean, the idea with being an artist, especially one that illustrates or draws or paints, is that you really need to ideally be drawing or creating something every single day of your life, because it's like with your exercise, it's muscle memory. You know, the motivation drives you to do it every single day, because if you lose that motivation to draw, even for 3 or 4 days, and then you come back to your sketchbook or come back to your digital tablet and you draw or paint, you'll notice the difference. You'll notice like,
Hmm.
oh
Your
holy
s-
hit,
your skills will definitely stagnate a little bit, and while it's easy to get them back,
yep,
especially over the short term, over the long term, it's it's way harder. And actually, I've noticed that in myself. I actually haven't painted since probably probably like holiday, Christmas, but that was mostly because of my film production. Once I was done painting the backgrounds, after that, I couldn't actually spend any time on that kind of stuff because I had compositing to worry about. I had all the animation to do. I basically had to finish the film, and in all those months, I think 4 or 5 months where I hadn't painted, I'm coming back to it now and realizing, holy shit, I've forgotten most of what I actually sort of already knew about painting.
yep,
But instead of, and I mean like for about a week, I've been really, or longer than a week. Yeah, definitely longer than a week. I've been really struggling to sort of get myself back onto the painting train, but
yep,
I've basically what I'm doing is I'm like, okay, you know what? I taught myself how to paint once. I can do it again, and so that's basically why over probably most of this summer I'm going to be doing exactly what I did in second year, and knowing that I can and knowing that I've done it before, I'm basically going to teach myself how to paint again,
hmm,
but going a heck of a lot farther this time because I already do have a knowledge base that I will pick up again pretty quickly.
yeah,
But because I have so much more to learn, this is the perfect time to do it.
yeah,
So
definitely,
instead of getting really down on myself and not doing it for a really long time, I'm just going to start at the fundamentals again because that's so important. Like going back to basic things. It's something that even people that have been doing 20 30 years of art and experience, like that's something that even they have to do, like go back to basically how you started and repeat those fundamentals and those steps because it's just really necessary.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's again, it's like I said with exercising. It's a thing called muscle memory. You know, you will
Hmm.
eventually pick something back up. You know, it's not like you've got to start at base and completely relearn. There is so much of your brain that remembers. All right, yeah, so it's this tool and this color. So, but again, if you leave it too long, eventually those things can go from stagnation to like deterioration. And then
Hmm.
you will face the fact that you're like, oh god, I need to learn how to use my Wacom again, and I need to learn how to like
Yeah. Oh
adjust
my
tools
God,
and
how do I turn on my Cintiq? Holy
oh
shit.
my god, where's the power for it? Photoshop, oh my god, my menus have moved everywhere. So that happened the other day actually. I opened my Photoshop and my cloud save stuff had moved, so I had to totally readjust my entire workspace in Photoshop, and oh my god, it was so annoying. Just
Yeah.
the whole half an hour that I didn't need to spend doing that, but I did, and I was like, god damn it, Adobe, no again.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that was a definitely good talk on the motivation, and I think the idea is, I think the end result or the end kind of way we would end it is say that motivation is something you will struggle with your entire life as an artist, but
Oh yeah.
don't let it get you down. You're always remember that you're always learning, and even if you're just beginning like us, that you know there is so many more people out there that are great artists, a lot more talented, but they all started exactly where you are just now. You know what I mean, so
Yeah.
as a great man once said, the journey of 1,000 steps begins with a single one. So
Just put one foot in front of the other.
that's it, and even if you started now
And you know
and
what? Actually, the thing about the struggle you're talking about, it's something that every artist goes through, and I actually think, the struggle might be a good thing because if you're struggling and you're not feeling comfortable, that means that you're moving forward. Like
yeah,
that really just like feeling of oh god, I don't know what I'm doing.
mm,
That's basically your sign that you're in a place where like you're learning, and even if it feels like you're on a plateau, really you're you know your brain and your artistic sensibilities are basically just trying to push through that that really like nasty plateau that feels really bad, but
mm,
like I think you can just rest comfortable in the knowledge that eventually it'll end as long as you keep pushing through it, and
yeah,
and you'll sort of reach the next stage, and then you can start to plateau and feel crappy again. So it's basically just like a constant, just it's kind of a vicious cycle, but it's a vicious cycle, moving forward and progressing. So it's
yeah,
it's it's definitely good and bad,
yeah.
and I'm sure I might think completely differently about this in 5 years once I've progressed another 5 years, but who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. I mean, and definitely, a lot of guys, something that kind of comforted me with motivation wise was that, a lot of the guys have spoke to me, industry pros, and said, look, there is a point you will get to where You are not the best artist in the world, but you will get work from people. You know, people will contact you for commissions or paintings or even for jobs. But you know, there's people think they've got to be like Noah Bradley or kind of Titus Lunter or Craig Mullins level before you'd even get contacted for a single painting commission or stuff like that. But there is a point you will get to where you will get work. And again,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, Colin, I think is the guy that would say that his work isn't as great as such and such, but Colin is working in an industry just now. He has a job.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So you know, Colin will tell you.
And actually, you know what? I think what you just mentioned, that's actually more or less where I am right now. Like I'm working a full-time job, doing pretty well at it, and I'm also getting fairly consistent offers for freelance work that are actually, like good paid jobs, either
Yep.
tutorials or illustration for, different companies, people I know.
Yep.
But it's like it's legit work. And when that stuff starts to happen, that's basically when you can say, okay, I'm sort of at that baseline industry standard, better in some areas, maybe
Yep.
not so good in other areas, but that's when you can be like, okay, I'm basically there, but
Yep.
that actually doesn't really mean much because I got so much farther to go.
Yeah, definitely. But like obviously there is that plateau you hit where you will get work through your door. You will be getting offered jobs. You don't have to be necessarily the best in the industry before you even get offered a single job. I mean, so because
Yeah.
obviously because in most guys' eyes you'll be at the starting line. You've just graduated, you're just doing your first job, but even out your fourth year, you were saying you had multiple offers from studios. And
Yeah.
again, that sometimes that's a rare occurrence because some graduates obviously struggle to get work at the end of their degree, but because you've worked your way up through the last couple of years, those jobs were there, but you were getting offered work. It's not like you were leaving your degree and you were like, I've nothing to go to, I've no work. You did have
Hmm.
something, multiple things there. And
Yeah.
because people
One
think,
thing I will say about that is, yeah, it was partially due to the fact that I did have a decent portfolio. I was shopping it around a lot, but as well, it actually has, I think, even more to do with just being really, really lucky, being in the right place at the right time,
yeah,
having laid that groundwork years ago, or made contacts years ago, or met people who then talk to people, blah blah blah. I
hmm
mean, like I know a lot of people in my year who really should be working or really should be getting a lot of job offers, but
yep,
for whatever reason, whether it's because they didn't get their stuff out there or
hmm
because their social media presence isn't quite as extensive as what it should be,
yep,
or they're just really really unlucky. Like it really comes down to like how much you put out into the universe and how like that'll basically determine how much comes back.
yeah, definitely. And I think obviously what was the thing? I think was it Noah Bradley that always said the two key elements to any art is to make cool art and then show it to people. That's
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to show it to people, or at
yeah.
least put it out there for people to find or see. Or yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's definitely. I mean I think if you get yourself out there, eventually people will come. It's like the old saying: if you build it, they will come. It's the same. Don't focus too much on work or getting the cool ass job with a big games company. Just make cool paintings, and eventually somebody will find you and be like, we want to get off your job or commission work, and don't put as much pressure on yourself. As long as you're constantly making things, the offers will come. I mean,
hmm
it's not like you're going to be, if you're talented enough, you will get the work. That's the bottom
exactly.
line. I mean, so
Or talented enough, or you've just put enough time on task. Because I think talent is that little sort of that I think it has less to do with actual skill and more to do with that's sort of the spark that gets you involved. I
yep,
think those are your initial sensibilities, your initial interest,
yep,
but everything afterwards, like 99% of what happens afterwards, it's all basically the hours of grinding that you put in.
yep, definitely. Yeah, I mean, so we're talking about the 10,000 hour rule last night and all the kind of the things that came with that. But yeah, definitely, it's the time on task. Colin, I definitely agree. Yeah. So yeah, so that's us for this week, guys.
Yeah, that's this was fun.
Yeah, definitely. Apologies for if there's any kind of audio drops or things in between. We're still playing with the format. We're still playing with equipment and stuff like that as well. But as we go forward, hopefully, we will obviously be trying to make as much improvement as we can to the formula, to the talking, and obviously to the things we are using to record. If you guys want to find us, as individual artists, we will be making some social media presence for the podcast, but you can find me at most things at Gordon Neill Art through website or Facebook or Instagram, stuff like that. Colin, you're pretty much the same. Is it?
More or less, yeah. I have a Facebook page, ArtStation presence. I've just sort of started to ramp up on Instagram. I don't actually have like a single tag like you do, like Colin Searle art. All my things are kind of named differently, but I guess the name Colin Searle is attached to all of them. So somewhere in where we post the podcast, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, or whatever, we'll have links to all of our stuff there.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put them in the show notes down below. What we've been talking about from time to time, and obviously descriptions and links for all our artwork individually on different websites. And then I think next week we'll probably pick another subject going forward, and then I think maybe the third show or fourth show we'll try and get our first guest on, and we'll talk amongst ourselves about who that's going to be. But we do have a couple of industry guys that are willing to come on, so a lot to look forward to, guys, so stay tuned. If you're listening on iTunes, obviously, hit the subscribe button, which means next time the next show comes out, it'll come straight down to your phone or tablet device. I think we're going to try and aim for roughly every 2 weeks, Colin. Is that about right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sometimes if I think if we have a lot to cover, or if we go really really long one week, we might split it into two, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 weeks sounds pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. So, my thanks to Colin for joining me.
Thanks to Gordon for sort of getting this together and organizing this, because this is like this is really Gordon's baby. Like, he was the one who came to me and be like, let's do this thing.
Yeah, definitely. But again, it's good to have Colin on because he is at a stage obviously further beyond me, but I'm also at a stage at the back of him. So again, like I say, when we made this podcast, we were trying to aim it at people more like us, because there is so many out there that are focused on industry guys already working, or guys who are obviously have had a huge history in studios, but we are obviously rank amateurs at this point. So
yeah.
it's a good perspective, I think, for people who are either just starting out or even just thinking of getting in the industry, because obviously,
or maybe just starting out in the industry. Because that's exactly where I am.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything up till that point, basically.
Yeah, definitely. But again, we'll have the guys on guests eventually that will also talk about their previous experience, which is good for people who are also looking for people with a bit more experience, so we will get them in as well. So, yeah, okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Colin. Thanks, everybody. And we will speak to you guys later. We're out.
Alrighty, take care. Cool.